Hello, everyone. Today, I'm Lindsay Bergman. Sorry. Today, I am here with Brooke Shankland, and we're going to talk about so many fun things today. Quilter Splinter, her block, her quilting, and who knows what else. So
Yeah.
we'll we'll just dive right in. Okay, so today I am meeting here at my studio in the warm, delicious paradise of Boise, Idaho, covered in 10 inches of snow.
Oh,
Yeah, we just got a ton of snow. And you are coming from?
Salt Lake City, Utah. Not too
Yay.
far, but yeah. So I've got some snow out my window too. Not 10 inches, thankfully.
Normally, you
Um,
guys are the ones with all the snow and not us.
yeah, yeah.
We've had
Which
a
I'll take it in the mountains
crazy
all
winter.
day long, but as soon as it hits in the valley, and if I have to get that shovel out, it's a little painful.
Yes, thankfully, my son is old enough to shovel now. So
Mm,
I make the hot cocoa and he shovels. And my
that's
husband
right. Oh,
cleans.
that's a good
So yeah,
arrangement. I like
it
that.
is a great arrangement. Um, okay, so tell me, have you always lived in Salt Lake? And tell me a little bit about you and when you started quilting and how you kind of ended up now. Your whole
Yeah.
life story, basically.
Back in the beginning. So I moved to Salt Lake about, I think we're coming up on 6 years now. I before that I was in Chicago for a long time. That's where I went to college and met my now husband, who's from the area. And I had, when I worked in management consulting for some time, and my client was in Salt Lake. So I spent a lot of time in the city and just fell in love with it. I grew up in Dallas, Texas, so I think growing up there and then living in Chicago, I was wanted to live somewhere with mountains. Like I was tired of the flat
Yeah,
landscapes.
that's one
And
thing
I
I
grew up
love.
skiing too, so always had like an affinity for snow and the mountains and
Yeah, and that's one thing I
um
loved growing up there too is I grew up in Salt Lake and having both mountain ranges on either side of the valley, I just felt so like protected and
yeah.
comforted by that. Like I'd be driving along, be like, I got the Uintas in the Rockies. And anyway,
Yeah.
I loved it.
It's still every time either I'm flying in or even just, driving down the road and you see those mountains, I still have kind of a pinch me moment of, wow, I live here. They're right there. That's
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
Um, and it's so fun with each, new season of the year. There's another set of outdoor activities to look forward to. So, as opposed to in Dallas, you kind of limit your outdoor activities in the summer because it's so blasting hot. And then in Chicago, you limit your outdoor time in the winter because it's
It's so
so freezing
cold.
cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've kind of gotten both extremes. And to answer your question about quilting, I mean, I'm a fairly recent quilter or new quilter. I'm sure this is a, common story. My oldest niece was about to be born and I wanted to make her something. And I actually was really fixated on this particular crochet blanket that I just thought was gorgeous and taught myself to crochet, went really deep into that craft, was constantly scouring, Pinterest and other sites for patterns and designs. And then social media started to drip quilts into my feed, and I was very
Yay.
intrigued. And I love crochet, but I think sewing, I don't know, that opens up a whole nother world of possibilities to me. Though I do tend to stay in my lane of 2 dimensions. I'm still getting over my intimidation of garment sewing. But in any case, I really quickly took to quilting, just loved, I don't know, just all the creative aspects. I was starting to kind of tweak patterns to make them my own. And then I think this was also sort of coinciding with moving to Utah into a new space and I found myself trying to fill space with just stuff, so that it wasn't empty. And then I came to realize I would prefer to have something in those spaces that was really meaningful to me, that I thought was beautiful, that maybe, represented me or me and my husband and, you know,
Yeah.
our way of life and or whatever. And so I think that's what really inspired me to start designing things that were inspired by some of these kind of philosophies and concepts that I was kind of meditating on and finding helpful in my own life.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess I should mention philosophy was one of my majors in college, so that has very much influenced all of this and
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
kind of the deep um, thought that goes into all of it and the significance behind all the designs.
That's great. Talk to me a little bit more about um the name behind your business, and I'm gonna butcher it, so I'm gonna let you share
Yeah.
it with us. And how that came into existence and how it's such a central part of what you're doing now.
Yeah. So the name of my business is Eudaimonia
Okay, I did
Studio.
have it right in my mind, but I didn't want
Yeah.
to.
I question whether I should have named it something that's so difficult to pronounce,
No,
but
it's okay.
I guess it's a good conversation starter.
Yeah.
Um, so eudaimonia is the Greek term for human flourishing. And in some people will translate it as happiness. I don't know if it's Aristotle that originated it, but he uses it a lot in his philosophies and teachings. So some people call it happiness, but it's not. It's more than just that sort of fleeting idea of happiness that sometimes we think of. It's just this very sense of contentment, and when you live in alignment with your values and you have a sense of community, and that's why I really love the human flourishing translation.
Mhm.
And so I, I mean, I mentioned how I was a philosophy major and how I think and overthink just about everything. Um, and I think I'm just always considering how can I be better? How can I make the world better? And so this idea of, okay, can I create these designs that, you know, are created from these ideas that have inspired me and kind of, I don't know, led me to think about things differently. They provided a new perspective that has allowed me to be a better friend, daughter, sister, partner, whatever, um, better community member. Um, and also just bring me joy, in the deepest sense, like in a sense of contentment. So um,
That's great.
that's kind of the background there. It's
I
just,
I love
yeah.
that, and not just as it being inspiring, but I love that it's so deep in the contentment aspect, because I feel like, there's so many things that we find that can like make us temporarily happy, but it's
Mm,
finding things in your life that really bring contentment and joy, um
yeah.
that it turns into that flourishing, which I think is really great. How much was this philosophy or thought process part of the actual making of the design? I have, because quilting is such a contemplative nature
Mhm.
act that I can only imagine, like, if that was such a big part of the concept and creation of that design, did you have moments of reflection on that concept while you were making it as well?
Sure. Yeah. And that's the hope too when other people are making these designs. And sometimes they may just enjoy the design. It's aesthetically pleasing to them, which is wonderful. But I hope too that if someone's at a point in their life where that they really need to hear and kind of meditate on that message, that can be therapeutic for them as they're making that
Mhm.
quilt itself, that they're able to, as they're piecing together the design, that they are, also piecing together in their mind how this kind of impacts their life, or how they can put this message more into action. um and yeah, it's just been it's kind of interesting how I'm realizing it's such an active journey. Like I feel like I'm releasing stuff that I'm needing to hear for myself in real time, or that I'm discovering, usually stuff that I release, it's like, I just discovered this and I feel like other people need to hear it too, because I need to.
Mhm.
And so much of it is for myself as much as for other people.
Yeah.
These are concepts that I continuously have to remind myself of, I think, in order to just kind of stay happy and stay afloat and to flourish. And so I hope that, when people are making it, that they're able to remind themselves of those messages. Maybe they're gifting it to someone who needs to hear that message, or they're going to display it in their home because it's a message that they find inspiring and that it can, kind of have that lasting impact.
Absolutely. I love that. Um, I want to segue a little bit and see how your thoughts connect between those concepts and messages and your design style. Because
Mm.
I really, really love how modern and geometric your style is.
Oh, thank you.
So talk to me a little bit about what you're drawn to, and if you see like what kind of connection between those ideas and what you find yourself creating in your
Yeah.
design.
Yeah. I've definitely seen an evolution in my design style. I don't know that I really ever before I started designing quilts consider my style modern. Um, and so that's been interesting to kind of contend with, even just like in
Yeah.
my house, I'm like, oh wait, that's not modern. Not that everything has to fit
No.
perfectly, but um I sometimes I think most of well, not all of them, but a lot of my designs, I do try to keep them minimalist. And some of that is because I am pretty impatient as a sewist. And I love when projects come together quickly. Not that
Uh-huh.
there's something to be said for, just enjoying the time that you spend on something that is very intricate. And so in a way, my block for the quilters planner is a little bit of a departure from that, what's generally a principle
Uh-huh.
in my design. But that's an interesting question about, does the kind of modernity and minimalism, I do think like in general, as I think about like simplifying, you know, I I often look at designs and I'm like, there's just too much going on. I want to stick to the message. Sometimes I try to cram too much into one design and, you know, whether or not I find it aesthetically pleasing, I'm like, I don't wanna, I want, I want things to be pretty clean, not just clean looking, but also to be very clear when I'm saying this is what this represents, that it's not so convoluted, that it's no, this is a fairly simple concept because I know that even as a lover of philosophy, we philosophers don't always communicate or articulate our ideas or concepts in the most straightforward way. So um, that's interesting. I don't know that I've like actively thought about that, but that may also, in a way, kind of influence
Yeah. Yeah.
what I produce.
That's awesome. Yeah, I and I don't mean to put you on the spot with that question, but I'm always interested to hear, you know, the backstory behind a lot of people's designs. And so it makes a lot of sense to me that, that contemplative, meditative action of putting your design together is also reflected in the message and
Mm.
the overall design as well, which is really
Yeah. And
fun.
I think, yeah, also because I myself am relatively new at quilting, and while I, consider myself a quick learner and I've certainly developed a lot of skills along the way, because I think I'm so passionate about getting these messages out and inspiring other makers. I want to make the designs as accessible as I can too. And
Mhm.
so figuring out sometimes if I've got what looks like a very complicated design, I am constantly thinking about the logistics of how that's going to actually get pieced together and what sort of
Yeah.
techniques are going to be required for that, and how can
Hmm.
I make it as accessible to, as many quilters as possible.
Yeah.
So that's always in the back of my mind too when I'm actually like figuring out when the rubber hits the road. Okay, how does this get pieced together?
It's
And is this
true.
possible? Do I need to change some shapes so that because that's not actually achievable without some advanced tools?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think every quilter kind of runs across that where either they're making a pattern or they're making their own design. How do you take your idea from pen and paper, um, or pencil on paper, maybe,
Hmm.
to fruition. Um, and I think perhaps it'll be interesting to talk to each of our designers this year about how they pieced all of their blocks and came up with a design and then worked that out. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting part of the process for sure. I'm just looking really quick at your page that we have in the planner. I really, really love the introspection one that you
thank
shared
you.
with us that we have a photo of.
Mm-hmm.
It's again so simple, but
Mm-hmm.
so striking. I mean, they're all
Thank
really
you.
great. Wayfinder is so retro. I love it. Love it. What do you feel is your most favorite design so far?
Oh gosh.
Pick a favorite child here.
Yeah, that's impossible. I do really like the repair quilt. Is that
Mm,
one in there?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
think because there's some different variations to it that you can have it be super scrappy, or you can have it where you actually create a solid background and there's more of a design and
Mm,
so it, but I think because um I mean I do love incorporating so many colors that design in particular lets me kind of do it challenges me in a way because there's a version that's totally scrappy and it's got 16 colors, which to some people could sound very overwhelming or
yeah.
intimidating to do 16 colors that go together, but I
Yeah.
love it because it lets me experiment more with what colors look good together. And I love the meaning behind it too. Just the idea that we can so easily feel overwhelmed and hopeless and, with all of the stuff going on around us and in the world. But this idea that we can be here, part of our purpose is to help repair some of those things. And we
Yeah.
wouldn't have that opportunity if some things weren't broken. And so to start finding beauty in those opportunities and it just it was a very healing thought. I think that was over the pandemic,
Mm,
when obviously all of our minds I think often went to a dark place, and that
yeah.
was sort of the light for me at that period of time, so
Yeah. And
that was a special place.
I love that idea too of taking, it's not just 16 fabrics, it's 16 various things that you have to take care of in your life and like
Hmm.
finding the balance between those
Yeah.
um and finding a way to, repair past mistakes and work your way forward. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That's really great. I do want to mention, uh, in the planner is a coupon code. So if you have your planner, Brooke has given us a code to get 50% off any of your patterns, which is so generous. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
exciting. I'm probably gonna use that for myself to get some
Oh,
of
good.
these. I have some
Yeah,
grand
no, I would love
plans
for
this
people
year.
to check
Yeah.
out what I've got. I try to, I obviously have like a style, but some of my patterns are very, sometimes I worry, like, am I creating a kind of coherent style? But I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm just
No,
putting
it
out
is
there
you. Yeah.
what I'm inspired by. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, talk to me about your love for half rectangle triangles.
Ugh.
They're a little bit newer to me, to be honest. Like I've seen them in quilts, but I haven't like gotten to the point where I'm like calling them HRTs yet.
Okay. Yeah. They're still,
Because
yeah, they're the HST kind of like stepsister.
yes, exactly, the big stepsister. So I have both colorways,
Mm-hmm. I
and
have
do you have
one
your
that I
colorway?
just finished.
Yay. Oh, lovely.
I love a
Yes.
dark background.
Yeah, so isn't it interesting to see it in different colorways? Um, I think A, I think this would look amazing with a dark background too, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I what was I gonna say? Oh, I love seeing what each of the designers have come up with for their colorway, at least their early version that they sent to us. And then the version that Kitty and I ended up working out for um the quilt along itself, and how
Yeah.
we
Which,
really wanted to make this our corner blocks, and we love these birds. So talk to us a little bit about your block headwind and what inspired you and how you designed it.
yeah, I had been I mean, birds have so many different, I think, meanings and are very symbolic of a lot of different things. But I was thinking about how, birds, especially when they're just kind of hovering in the air and because they're using the wind that's coming, running against them, to create lift. And, planes do the same when they're taking off. You take off into the headwind, and just this idea of, life is full of challenges. I mean, that sounds very trite, and obviously it's true. Um, and so not all challenges are gonna, you might not always come out better on the other side, but there's going to be these opportunities to leverage those challenges to kind of level up. And so this idea that a headwind creates lift, and kind of being open to that opportunity, right? And because I think sometimes for me personally, I see a challenge, and I think I often, or my default is to go to, why me? I can't believe this, and to just, fight it, fight it, fight it. And
Yeah, that's I
um,
love that analogy because you're right. We're not going to lift ourselves up heading downwards. Like,
yeah,
that's just not how life works. That's not how science works. Like,
yeah.
we have to face that head on
Hmm.
for
And a
it to
tailwind
get
is
under
great.
us.
And yeah, when you have good fortune, take it, do what
Yeah.
you can with it, but recognize, when things do get tough, that um, there's something there, uh, or at least like be open to the possibility that could make you better and stronger, or if nothing else, you will learn something, right? And become better in that way and grow. So,
Yeah.
um, that is a reminder that I need a lot.
I love it. I really do. Okay, so talk to us about the mechanics of the block,
Mm.
tips you might have, and what's the best way for us to dive into this year with HRTs? Because we have them in this block, but we also have them in our, goodness, now I can't remember. Flip back to our handy thing. Um, prairie, is that prairie grass? I believe. Wait. The other arrow that uses HRTs in the corner. Looking to my planner. Yep. Erin Nichols, Prairie Glass, also has HRTs. But
Mm.
anyway, what are
Yeah,
your
there's a
thoughts?
lot. There's a lot going on in this book.
I know.
I have to say.
We'll talk about
But I
all our
love
favorite
the
peeps.
result. I mean, so HRTs have become it might be a borderline obsession for me now. I think I've just found so much freedom. Once you kind of get the general principles down of HRTs and how they work, and how important the ratio is, to doing all the math and trimming and stuff. I think they just open up this whole new world in designing. And so for HRTs, I mean, I think I can think of two main things off the top of my head that are important to keep in mind. One is that, because I almost exclusively use the two at a time method, which requires you to line up the corners of the HRTs opposite, or sorry, the rectangles
Mhm.
opposite. Oh, I should have had some like pre-cut
No,
pieces to demonstrate.
we made
But
sure
I know
to
they're in
include
there.
them in the
Yeah.
reference section. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have both
Um,
methods in there. And so everyone can find the rotated version or the straight version. So the two at a time is on the top here. It
mhm.
shows rotating that and then doing it one at a time is on the bottom. So,
Yeah.
okay.
So for the two at a time, it's so critical to know, I think you call it like left leaning and right leaning, which I actually hadn't heard that. I don't know that
Yeah,
I had a name.
that was Erin's suggestion,
I
I
love that.
believe. But
Yeah. I think I was just, I was like, oh, well, it needs to go this way or that way. And so knowing what your finished HRT needs to look like in terms of which direction the seam is dictates how, which how you're laying each rectangle on top of the other. So paying close attention to that. And then and when you do them two at a time, they're going to end up identical. So knowing that you're going to get two of the same
right.
leaning
But also to
HRT.
keep in mind that some of these you need only one
Mm-hmm.
because they're the opposite leaning for the
Right.
other side because
Right.
of
So you
how
should
we
just make
colored it.
another block.
Right. You will have enough to make another block, or you can do the one at a time method as well and then
Yeah.
have some extra scraps.
Right.
So
Right.
there's
Yeah.
either option. And our fabric requirements included enough extra that you
Mm,
can
very
cut
good. Yeah.
extra to practice, or if you mess up, you can have some extra to do more. But yeah, like, so for example, the skinny one on the tail, you have to make a left leaning one and a right leaning one,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll have an extra left leaning and
Yep.
right leaning.
Yep.
Uh,
And
if you
those
do
two
the
will
two at a
match
time method.
together. And
Yeah.
yeah. And I know, I
So
mean, trimming is tricky because I think often people think of trimming HSTs, which is a square, and you just know that the diagonal has to go on the 45-degree line. And obviously, with half rectangle triangles, it's not a 45-degree
that's right.
line. And the
Very
angles, it depends on
important
what
to
the
know that.
ratio is. Yeah.
And so in our diagram, we have a little tiny blow up of the corner that shows that your diagonal has to hit differently.
Mm-hmm.
It can't hit it right in the corner.
Yeah. And
So
so
yeah.
I took it.
Do you
I think
mark your
what's,
ruler?
I will at least put tape on what the trim dimensions need to be. So I was just trimming some yesterday but I took the tape off. But so I think for this one, like one of them is 3 3/4 by 5.5, maybe. And so I will tape off those dimensions on my ruler. And I did start off originally before I felt totally comfortable. And this gets to the point that I'm always thinking about what the finished HRT needs to look like. And I think that's what kind of helps people make sense of where the seam needs to be when you're trimming is you want, a 1/4 inch down and over, up and over, because you want those seams to intersect with the corners when it will be finished. So a square
Right.
1/4 inch inside, basically the corner is what you're aiming for. And so I did start off by, because I did learn that you can use a Sharpie and it will come. I was scared at first. I'm not sure I trusted this advice, but I did test it out and it worked. It will come off with rubbing alcohol.
On your ruler.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
I think we
I'm sure you
do
could find all
mention that
sorts of
too.
other.
Yeah, but that you mark your 1/4 inch in from your line,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, in from each corner. And so when you're trimming a set of HRTs where the seam runs one direction, I suggest trimming all the ones that lean one direction if they're the same size all at once so that you just know what those, points on your
Points
ruler
are.
are that where the seam. And then if you have to trim some going the other direction of that same size, then do, as opposed to going back and forth and maybe losing your points
Yeah,
of reference, if that makes sense.
that's a great tip. Yeah, especially doing a lot of them.
Hmm.
Because people, I mean, technically in February, we need to make both blocks
Hmm.
for each corner for the two corners. And so you'll be doing all of these twice in potentially different fabrics if you choose to make it
Hmm.
how we have it colored, or however they end up deciding to do. So yeah,
Well, I
I'm
think it's
excited.
so fun that the split quarter triangles, is that what we call them? Sometimes I'm still need to get up
Yes,
on the lingo.
the split quarter square triangles.
Yeah, these
Uh-huh.
in the middle.
Yeah,
But
those
I
are
love
fun too.
how, and I didn't even plan on this when I was designing, but the fact that it just turned out that you just need, it's like one set of 4 to do all of them because they all turn out different.
Right?
I don't know if I
Yep.
explained myself well there, but
No, it's
um,
true. I mean, it's just the magic of quilting, I think. The fact that like you could put these two pieces of fabric together and add a
mhm,
third, and then now you have like what you need
yeah,
if you sew it,
cool.
cut it in the right spot, Yeah, on the
Yeah.
opposite page, we have our diagrams for both hourglass and the split quarter square triangle. And
Hmm.
I don't know, it's magical.
Yeah,
So
those references are incredibly handy.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
amazing.
we've been tweaking them a little bit each year, but this year we did add significant to them to make sure that we covered everything we needed. Um,
Hmm.
because, I'm not sure if you had a planner in the past, but we are doing our instruction pages a little bit differently this year, where we don't spend pages and pages on one block.
Mhm.
But we have it all broken down into a handy list. So those
Yeah.
of everyone who's like, who knows how to do the method, they can just read through, cut what they need and move forward.
Yeah.
And those that need to read the full instructions can just refer back to the reference section for that. So,
So smart. So
yeah,
smart. And keeps it so clean and yeah,
yeah.
well organized.
How, what is your favorite method for labeling patches, pieces when
Oh,
we're
like
working on it together?
pieces.
Because we got a
I
lot of different little pieces in our block.
I know there's a lot in this one.
It's okay.
Not most of my stuff is not this intricate. But I enjoy it. It's a little bit of a change. Um, I so usually in my printed patterns, I will include, labels for people to print and cut out, but I often don't print patterns. I just keep them on my tablet or my computer. So I have some just graph paper. I mean, it could be any
Oh,
kind of paper,
yeah.
but I just have a notepad of graph paper. I will tear off a sheet, and I'm probably not supposed to use my rotary cutter. I don't know. It probably does the blade cutting paper, but I will
Paper,
just slice
scissors.
it up. Yeah, I
It's all
just
good.
slice it up into little squares,
Mm,
and then I just write. I look
great.
at the pattern and say, okay, I need A, B, C, D. And then I use my handy dandy Clover clips,
That's,
and
yes.
these are my best friend.
Yeah.
And I just keep them. I have a little box, and sometimes, if I'm gonna make that design again, I will just keep those labels I'll save them, or maybe I'll just clip them all together and say these are the labels for this design.
Yeah.
But I would lose my mind if I didn't label my stuff.
I know. Sarah made that same tip for January's block. She said, just label
Mm-hmm.
everything, keep it all straight. I heard a tip once that it was at my quilt guild. One of my friends there said that she just pulls out her stack of paper plates and with a Sharpie like
Hmm.
writes on the plate A, B, right? And then
I
she
love
like
that.
keeps her plates all stacked up. And then when she's ready to
Oh,
like move
that's
her
great.
project, she can just stack up her plates and take them to the
Oh,
next
that's
spot. But
fabulous.
that way, I mean, she might still label them individually when she's like piecing them, but that way she could do all of her cutting
Sure.
and keep them all
Yeah,
together.
and then
So
hmm oh, that's a great tip. I love that.
interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, we have a lot of pressing. Um, are you pressed to the light side or the dark side or an
You
open?
know, I'm not a hardcore one or the other. It really depends on the design, the fabrics I'm using. I think in general, I default to pressing open.
Mm,
Well, I know it's controversial either way. I was going to say
yeah.
that's unpopular opinion, but I don't know that there's a popular opinion. Um, but sometimes, so for example, I can show you on this. I mean, if you are sewing seams together where
Mm-hmm.
it's just going to fight you so much
Mm-hmm.
if you try to
See,
press open.
mine are open too in the same
Oh,
spot.
so you went for it.
Yeah.
Oh, but you pressed to the side, did you not on the?
Well, I have to tell you, it wasn't me. My
Oh,
so Shelly, our sample maker, she made all the blocks and I pieced them together into the quilt. So she made two of every block. So she made
mm,
four,
right.
so that we could have a sample, an extra piece to show and
Yeah.
photograph, plus put into the quilt. But yes, so
Hmm.
um, she, she pressed them open
Hmm. Yeah.
on the last step, but then on the earlier step, she would press to the darker sides so that
Mm,
the yellow wouldn't cast a shadow into the white
right.
background. So
Yeah.
maybe it really just depends on what color your background is, right? Like you're pressing to the dark, which means
Yeah.
pressing
Because I would
outwards.
using a dark, yeah. And I mean, sometimes um, I don't have a super fancy iron, but if I'm just struggling with pressing open or to one, I'll be like, all right, the seams are just, they're telling me they need to go this way. And
Exactly.
I mean, my biggest thing is just that the seam is consistently pressed
Hmm.
one side, it
Right.
doesn't get
One
all
way or the
wonky.
other. Yeah.
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 Um,
Consistency, I think, is very important key, whether it's
yeah.
cutting or pressing or whatever. I will also say that pressing direction I've noticed can help with adding dimensionality to the
Mm,
2D-ness of your art, of your quilt, right? Like
sure.
if you press flat, you're going to get more of a flat looking thing. But like, say you have a repeating bunch of HSTs, if you press them a certain direction, they're going to look like they stand up off that quilt a little bit more and have a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more of a dimension. So if that's something that you want to strategically plan for,
Right.
then you can adjust your pressing accordingly. So,
Yeah. And I had to reckon with the fact actually as well that, okay, so I was working on this design. I have a sticker of it called Sincerely. And you sort of, you strip piece, obviously there's these blocks
uh-huh.
that have some thinner strips of fabric. And as I was going through testing, I mean, my testers were saying, well, mine are different size than what you're saying it should be. And pressing open versus pressing to the side. Pressing to the side can almost, it takes a little bit of
Mm,
me, like measurement, like fabric away.
yeah,
So that was just something that I
that's
learned.
interesting.
And
But when you think about it, like some of the things we're doing in quilting is so precise. We're talking like one or two threads of the weave of fabric. I mean, that's the difference between a 1/4 inch and a scat 1/4 inch, right? It's just,
right.
it's like just minuscule. And I can
Yeah.
totally see how just folding it one way just takes a couple more threads that direction and can
Mm-hmm.
adjust it over the long term. Because I can't tell
Yeah.
you how many times have you, go to piece a whole bunch of little pieces together and like your scant is not quite scant enough,
Mm-hmm.
and then you end up like being a whole half inch short.
I
Um,
know. And it just, yeah, the more seams there are, the more it adds up. And so, yeah, I had to add another section that talked about scant seam and how do you kind of practice and make sure that your scant seam is
uh-huh.
accurate. And scant seam is not even the like there's no specific measurement. I don't think it's just, oh,
Yeah,
it's a thread or
a little
two
bit. Right, right.
narrower than
And
okay.
I mean, it also can depend on like how thick your thread is or
Right.
how,
Yeah.
much your machine is pulling one way or the, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I will say that Shelley in general did say a lot about, making things a little oversized so that you have room to cut them down
Mm-hmm.
to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that they are big enough to finish at the size that you want, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I noticed that when I was putting all of them together into the top, like, you have to really uh give yourself some space so that when you add your sashing, things are going to line up nice. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the good news is that if things don't seem like they're going to lay very flat, it all disappears in the
It
quilting anyway,
quilts
right?
out. It'll all quilt out.
It'll
Yeah.
all quilt out. Yeah. So yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited to see how everyone sews these blocks this month, and um as questions
Yeah.
pop up, you and I can answer as needed, and we can all learn how to love our HRTs. So
Yeah, I'm telling you, yeah,
fantastic.
once you get the hang of it, you'll get, I mean, I hope you
Yeah.
will. I certainly did, and they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then we'll all be prepared for May to
Mm-hmm.
do some more.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the planner. I'm
Okay.
very, very anxious to hear, well, more excited, obviously, but anxious. I want to hear how you like yours and what version you got, and your experience so far. I know you're, as being kind of one of the first months, you don't have like lots of time with it, but
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear how it's going.
So I got the hardcover, which I love.
That's awesome. So I
I
have the coil
completely,
with
mm-hmm,
the
and I completely
removable
see the
cover.
utility of that. Like wanting to lay flat and the ease of that, but I love a nice clean binding, and then, after the year's done, or if I however I want to store it throughout this year, I can just put it on the bookshelf and it looks nice. And
Now, I have to
um
ask, because I asked Sarah the same way. How do you like the texture of the cover paper?
oh, I love it.
Isn't it so velvety? Like it's got kind of
Yes,
that soft,
yeah, it's not like
yeah.
that sticky glossy.
Mm-mm.
It's like, yeah, it's mostly, is it matte or
It is
matte?
yeah, it is a matte.
Matte, yeah, no, it
Yeah,
is, you're right, it's like very soft, and it just feels, I can feel the quality. It really is like
great.
very solid.
Do you find that
um
it's even just a couple weeks in, do you feel like it's settling more so that it does lay a little bit more flat? I assume it'll get
Yeah,
to that point throughout the year at some point, but
right. Yeah. And obviously, as you start getting more equal distribution of pages
yeah,
on either side. Um, but sometimes I'll just give it a
a
little
little,
press
little,
and yeah, it's
little
good. And
nudge.
I don't mind putting, something to weight it down. And I don't know. I think I'm just used to doing that with a lot of different books. So, but no, I love it. I'm very, very pleased with my choice. And, even though I'm very squarely a millennial and most things I prefer to be in digital format, I have in the last few years realized how much I benefit from having a physical planner and writing
Yeah.
things down. You know, I'm like, all right, I guess I'm old school now. I don't know. I'm not
Hey,
mad about it.
I think it's just how minds work. I
Hmm.
mean, people who haven't tried one, I'm like, you gotta try it.
Yeah, yeah, just give it a shot. Um, and I'm as I was flipping through it, I'm just blown away by the amount of thought that went into just all the kind of peripheral things that someone would want to have access to
Oh,
throughout the
that's so
year.
great. Tell me some of your
I
favorites.
So up front, it's on page 6, starts on page 6 on mine, the favorite
Oh, I will
things.
say we added page numbers this year because I felt like that
Oh,
was very
yeah,
important.
for
We've
easy
never had
reference.
pages. Yep.
Yeah.
So page
No, I think
6.
that's wonderful. Yeah, just being able to, I mean, this is my mind can often be quite scattered, and knowing that if because you've got skills to learn, books to read, places to visit, foods to cook and try, which I am loving that one, podcasts and music to listen to. Podcasts are that is my form of entertainment when I'm sewing, that and audiobooks. Um, and I'm always searching for new ones. And so people might say, oh, you like that one? Let me give you another one you might like. And of course, whenever it comes to finding it, I can never recall what it is. So
Yeah.
having a dedicated place to encourage me to record it, write it down there. And knowing I can go back and reference that when I get bored or run out of episodes of my favorite podcasts. Um, so I think that's great. And I was noticing how all of these different, like got the holidays and even quilt related events in the calendars. That is just fabulous. I love that. And it actually makes me aware of, things that I didn't know were going on. Like, oh, should I look into going to Quilt Week in Paducah, Kentucky?
Yeah.
Um,
There's a
I
lot of
am planning to
fun
go
stuff.
to QuiltCon. I don't know if you'll
Oh,
be
great.
there next
I
month.
am still trying to decide. It's still early
Okay.
enough. I might get flights cheap enough, given that
Hmm.
it's flying from the west out east is so
Yeah,
hard. I
it's
mean,
so
you
hard.
have it a little bit easier because you're in Salt Lake and it's a hub, but from Boise, it's
Yeah.
like, oof.
Yeah, it's tough going.
So still undecided.
Okay.
But if I
Well,
if
let
I
me know.
go, then we'll meet up.
Yes, please.
No,
Um,
that's great. I'm glad you mentioned that about the holidays. Our team does work very hard to include the ones we need to include, double check
mhm.
them, and make sure they're in place.
Yeah, and then I mentioned all the piecing methods, those references in the back.
Mhm,
I mean, just there's so many that I haven't tried yet, right? I mean, I think
mhm.
sometimes you learn one way to do something and then you just assume that's the only way, and then you realize, oh wow, there's this other maybe more efficient, or for whatever reason you might just find that one
Yeah.
easier.
Now I have to
Uh,
stop and go back for a second. Tell me,
yeah,
what calendar format did you get? And are you team Monday start date or Sunday start date?
I am actually very opinionated. um,
Everyone has an opinion. I have to tell you, and I might have mentioned this with Sarah too, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating that for everybody, but when we
no,
started this back like after year one, we got so much feedback of people like, well, I want mine to start on a Monday, that we sent out a poll and we were like, okay, pick one so we could know. And it was equally split. Like we had to offer
oh,
both. Yeah. So we've
okay,
offered
well,
both ever since.
so Sunday was the default Sunday start.
Yes. That was
Okay.
the
Well, I
first
feel
year.
very validated that people were as passionate about a Monday start to the week as I. So
You are
this is
okay,
the
so you got the Monday start and the horizontal.
mhm.
I'm a very traditional Sunday starter. Though funny enough, if I had my druthers, I would have the monthly calendar start on a Sunday and the weekly
Oh,
calendar start on a Monday. But that's kind of a lot of date moving
interesting.
around that would like drive me
Yeah.
bonkers. Anyway, so vertical is I like a little bit more direction to my week, but I
Mm-hmm.
like that the horizontal offers a little bit of flexibility. How have you noticed that works for you and your lifestyle?
Yeah. I think I maybe because I mean, I'm easily distracted or and so you would think maybe that I need more rigidity and structure, but I really do find I work best if I just know I've got, you know, two or three goals, two or three specific things I need to get done in the day. I cannot micromanage myself too much on what specific hours of the day I'm going to get those things done. But even for the week, noting here are some big things I know I need to accomplish. And so this gives me that flexibility to say each day, here's whatever progress I feel like I need to make in order to, you know, um, get me
Right.
to a place to achieve XYZ goals. Um, and I guess that sort of kicks me too to I love this for each month you've got the monthly goals, personal projects, quilting projects, because I find myself doing that too, kind of ad hoc on the side, like, oh, this month I really need to finish drafting this pattern, or I need to finish making the sample. And so
Mm-hmm.
it lives in my brain, but it needs to live on paper.
Yeah. Yeah. It it will get likelihood of it getting done if you write it down
Yes.
is higher
Yeah.
according to studies.
And then if it's
That's great.
there, I know that I need to translate that into weekly and daily, kind of milestones. So
Mhm.
that is extremely helpful.
Yeah. What are some things that you find yourself adding to your week? Um, Reminders to yourself, like how do you use your planner other than just like these are things I need to do? Do you find you use it as a journal or a sketchbook or
Yeah. I mean, even just like the habit tracker, I need to remember to drink water. I asked to go get my water bottle because for whatever reason, I don't get thirsty. It's not top of mind. And
Mhm.
um, beyond having my water bottle there, having a place to kind of track that, hold myself accountable. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think also it's I do some level of brainstorming too. I mean, not everything that I write down in here is going to get done because this is just one of my personality quirks, I guess. I tend to be quite ambitious and a little too ambitious, which then can result
I
being
think
out
we can
really
all
hard on
relate to
myself.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but sometimes it's helpful to just, even if I write down, well, I have to get all of this done. And then you look at it and you realize, Brooke, come on. Like, and and almost visually you can recognize I need to create more padding, more, you know, I don't even want to call it free time because it gets taken up by something,
Yeah.
right? But you need to have some kind of margin for error, I guess. But yes, but also for you to relax and not constantly be achieving, um, which is actually that's sort of a little bit of the inspiration behind my Wayfinder designs, enjoying the process, not constantly trying to get somewhere. But I
Right.
do find like maybe this sounds silly, but a planner helps me kind of come to that realization because I've overpopulated it. And then it's like a visual reminder that, oh no, there needs to be more white space each day
It
for
is
each week.
okay to erase some things or
Yeah.
cross them off before they're
Which
done.
I will only do in pencil too.
You're a pencil user. That
Yes.
is good to know. I am a color whatever pen I'm using that day, right? Like I should be color
Yeah.
coded maybe, but no, I'm a penner, scratcher outer.
Hmm.
Isn't that funny? How we
Yeah.
both do different things. Now I have to tell you, you mentioned about the habit tracker, and I can't remember, but I'm going to be sending you a new bookmark. that has a habit tracker on it. So these are
Perfect.
these are my new bookmarks. I've got some with prongs that clip into the coil planner, and I have some with just straight edges that you can use in your book if you don't
Mm-hmm.
want it to clip in. So this one's got habit tracker and quilting goal or a personal to-do list on the top, and the back side, sorry, it's got a little bit of a glare because they're laminated. Quilting to-do list
Mm-hmm.
and home to-do list. Check
Okay.
boxes so you can wipe on them and erase. I
I
will
was gonna say,
say
yeah, that dry erase, that'll be
dry
perfect.
erase is great. Wet erase works,
Mm. Okay.
or Sharpie, and then
Mm-hmm.
rubbing alcohol as well. So
Yeah.
it
Okay.
doesn't, none of the ink stains it. I've tested a lot of different
Oh,
things.
good. Okay.
So the other option we have right now is the meal planner, with spots to write down that and a shopping list. So you can try
I
those out.
love that.
Anyway, they're
Yeah.
coming to you in a package with a few other
Thank
goodies.
you.
But yeah, I'm really happy that we have them finally back in the shop, and people are like, they're sold out. When are they going to come back? I'm like, I just have to redesign them a little bit so that they're more sturdy. But now that they
Yeah.
are fully laminated around the edge, they'll last really well, long time. So
Yeah. Oh, and I'm excited for that meal planning because I'm not usually one for
me neither.
um like, oh, well, yeah, meal planning. It feels like micromanaging, but I'm like, but maybe in that domain I need that. Um, and that's one of my kind of, I'm not going to call it a resolution, but an initiative maybe for 2024 is
Initiative.
to
I love that.
just be more
Yeah.
intentional about, my meals and stuff, which
Well,
requires
I
support
think
and planning. So,
right. So I have one. I need to start using my bookmark version of it, but I have one at home that's hang on the wall dry erase. And I
mm,
found the other day, I think I took like 5 minutes and I looked through the fridge to see what we had. I'm like, we could make these meals. And I just kind of jotted them out, just
oh,
dinner
great.
only, like no other
Yeah.
meals or snacks. And then I can't tell you how nice it's been to come home and be like, what are you going to make for dinner? Oh, yeah, wait.
Yeah.
Look up. Okay, that's what I'm making. There's no like spend a half an
One,
hour arguing about it.
yeah.
Just
Fewer
do it.
brain cells that have to be used. Yeah.
I'm
It's
I'm
great.
like a convert now to this. We'll see how it goes, but like, how have I lived this long and not like
I know. I know. And everyone,
taking
there's such
care
a
of
whole
it?
culture around it. And I'm like, where
Oh,
have I been?
yeah. Okay, so I want to ask you about, have you taken some time to do your projects at a glance? Have you used this to
Haven't
track
yet,
your WIPs
but
yet?
is that in the back?
Project section.
Yeah,
So in
projects at a
between the
glance.
patterns and the reference section. Yeah.
Yes, I have not sat down with this yet, but I am excited to because I think I tried to create one myself once and was unsuccessful. And so this one looks very much more straightforward, and I'm not always so great at logging this stuff. It just is all
Hmm.
jumbled in my mind, and yeah, I've
Yeah.
got to get it out on paper. And even just again to say like, whoa, I have a lot of plans this month.
You
Maybe
know what?
some of
And
these
what
can be
I
bumped.
when I did this last year, and I still haven't done it yet for my plans for this year, but it was so interesting to see how many were so close to being done,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I just need to bind that one. Seriously? Like
Yeah,
I have three sitting here ready to
yeah,
be like, right? So like just
I
being able to
know.
see
Just
that
knock them
progress
out.
and a visually is going to be cool. Now, as a designer, I am excited to see later on this year, and hopefully you will try this out and share this on social with us, but I'm excited to see how you might find the project planner page helpful for you for designing your own project,
Um,
where you can kind of sit down and
yeah.
say, okay, I'm going to use an existing pattern and make something new, or make something new. But this, I will tell you, is my favorite page in the whole planner because I'm not one that really follows patterns exactly. Like I
Yeah.
will start with something and then like tweak it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to have a spot where I can work all of that out and write down what I need,
Yes.
I can't tell you how many
Yeah, you've
times it
got
saved me.
the dotted grids there, but then I noticed that you've got the full on grids after each month
Hmm.
too, which is, I mean, I love grids. And I mean, obviously for quilting, it's so helpful, if you're doing traditional piecing or even otherwise,
Mhm.
because everything is so geometric. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's going to be amazing. Yes, I'm so excited to use that because I've got a lot of ideas. It would be great to get them down into this planner.
Cool. Well, like I said, it's early on. There's no rush. No pressure. But I just love seeing how everyone uses it a little bit differently. I know some
Hmm.
ladies they tape their fabric in here
Oh,
rather than just
yeah.
write
Little
down what they
swatches.
used, and then this is their memory book of the planner
That's
or of
fantastic.
their year, So
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I get questions a lot, what colors did you use for, for that repair quilt? There's 16 colors. Oh, what colors did you
What
use? I'm like, "Oh, I don't know.
mustache? A shop mustache? Yeah.
I do. And actually getting some of those questions has forced me to be better about logging those things and keeping track. And
Man, once the selvage is off,
I know,
I can't. Yeah.
I know. And then I do have fabric chips. So then I'm like holding it up to the quilt and I'm like, is that the same color?
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for being an ambassador with us this year, Brooke. It's been wonderful to meet you and to get to know you a little bit more and to hear how you use the
Likewise.
planner. And I'm very excited to see how it works out for you this year. So everybody can look forward to seeing her posts. We'll share it on our channel as well, but you guys can follow her. Now tell us, will you spell out your handle on Instagram, and do you post on Facebook as well?
Somewhat cross-posting, I guess. I try to. I'm trying
Great.
to be better about Facebook because I know there's a lot of folks on there. So my handle on both Instagram and Facebook it's Eudaimonia Studio US, and it's
You do
EUDAIMONIASTUDISTUDIO US, which reads like Eudaimonia Studios, which I also kind of like. But
that's
Eudaimonia
interesting.
Studio was taken, so I had to add US. Um, and yes, very active on Instagram. You can
Great.
also email me. My email is Brooke with an E at the end at eudaimoniastudio.com. You can visit my website, eudaimoniastudio.com. Send me an inquiry through there. I love getting to know people and what speaks to them, and
Great.
um, just hearing from, yeah, who's inspired by my designs. And thank you so much for having me. This has been an honor, a pleasure. It's been so fun.
Awesome.
And I am really looking forward to diving into this planner this year. And
Great.
it's gonna be fun.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm
Thanks,
excited
Lindsay.
as well. All right.
All right, take care.
Bye.